Hey everybody, Eric here. Sorry, I meant to do this before I jumped on here. Got a little groggle in my throat, but it's nothing like a cold or anything. I walked outside and then there's dust and other pollen things in the air. And so I'm going to, so once again, I'm going to do something else. So today's video, I haven't done one in a week because it's been crazy busy last week with different things that I got my irons in different fires. But I've decided to go ahead and jump on and put my 2 cents worth in here about the assassination, and I mean assassination, of Charlie Kirk. Now, before I dive in to the whole reason for this video, and this is not a disclaimer, this is how I actually feel. The fact that Charlie Kirk was sitting under a tent in front of hundreds of students, the Utah University campus, to give one of his normal turning point debate speeches and things. And I'll dive into that later because that's what he does. Whether you vehemently disagree with him or not, there is actually no justifiable reason for Charlie Kirk to have been murdered, much less in the way that he was and at the time that he was. Absolutely no reason. There is no justification for it. No justification for the murder of him any more than there was justification for the murder of Melissa Hortman, who was a state senator from Minnesota, and her husband lying in their beds along with their dog. Yes, their dog was also killed. Or the fact that a lot of people will say that Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, that his home was set on fire. No. His home wasn't just set on fire. His home was firebombed on the day of Sabbath because the Shapiros are Jewish. None of these are justifiable. None. But I'll get into that a minute later. But I want y'all to know, me personally, Eric does not condone this in any way, shape, or form. None. But I can tell you who probably would have justified it. But we'll dive into that a little bit later. So hear me clearly when I say this. The murder of Charlie Kirk, there's no way that anybody can justify it to me. Absolutely not. Just because you have a differing opinion doesn't mean you should be killed for it, unless you are, even if you are trying to incite something. That doesn't mean that you should be murdered for it. You should be brought to trial or to court for it. But even that wasn't a just cause in this case. So let's get into it. So the whole purpose of my video is that there is something happening now in the political spectrum with regard to Charlie Kirk's murder. And also, the spotlight is on Charlotte, North Carolina, with the death of a Ukrainian immigrant who was murdered while on the train going home. Their murders have been politicized. But I'm going to focus on Charlie Kirk because of his rhetoric. And for anybody to say, well, he's dead now, so his rhetoric doesn't matter. Yes, it did. Yes, it does. It mattered when he was alive. And it matters even more so now he's dead. Now that he's dead. Immediately after his murder, Donald Trump and others on the MAGA right side immediately started blaming the left. Megyn Kelly tried to blame Obama behind the crocodile tears or the alligator tears of Charlie Kirk's death, that it was his fault that Charlie Kirk was dead. But then come to find out, when the shooter actually was caught, that the shooter, they then tried to say that the shooter was trans, or that the inscription on the bullets were trans. Again, attacking the trans community when the trans community didn't have anything to do with this, because someone who was arrested in another killing was in fact trans, and they're trying to blame everything on trans people now. So that was refuted when Tyler Robinson, who was supposed to be arraigned today, but I haven't seen that, so I'm still going to continue to call him the alleged shooter. Tyler Robinson was outed by his own father, and so Tyler turned himself in after his father outed him as the shooter. And then doing some background on Tyler Robinson's family, Tyler Robinson was raised a Mormon, grew up in a gun culture, because there are many pictures of Tyler and his siblings and his family all over social media when they were growing up, about them going to gun shows. A lot of people try to say, Charlie Kirk even said that gay people like me, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later, me being a gay person, that we actually groom people to be gay. I'm just going to put that out there and leave it there. Tyler Robinson lived in a 6-bedroom house whose father was a former police officer. And the grandmother actually came out and said the entire family are Republicans who support Donald Trump. So no, Tyler Robinson did not murder Charlie Kirk for the left. But the main point of this video is so that I can speak to black and brown people, the LGBTQ community, women, anyone who is a thinking human being, who is not cisgendered, white, and male, who followed Charlie Kirk, so that you will understand that what is happening is that they want you to have empathy for him, empathy for his wife, and empathy for his children by whitewashing his rhetoric. Well, I'm separating the rhetoric from the empathy I have for Erica Kirk and the Kirk's 2 children. Those 2 children will never know their father. Never know their father, never receive hugs from their father, never receive kisses from their father. They will never know their father. And Erica will never feel or hear the love from her husband physically ever again. I can't imagine the pain that she's going through. And I'm pretty sure, without having intimate knowledge or knowing any of their conversations or being party to their conversations, that quite possibly Charlie and Erica had conversations about the possibility of this day coming. I mean, I'm sorry that this has happened to that family. But it does not change the rhetoric of Charlie Kirk. And so I want you to know what Charlie Kirk has said over the years, and recently, and before he was murdered. I'm intentionally not saying before he died, because it does matter that he was murdered. So, let me just bring this up real quick. Let's see if I can get this up here. And I'm just going to go over it with you. So I compiled some bullet points. And actually, I'm going to show you if I can enlarge it a bit. I'm going to show you what I compiled about what Charlie Kirk said about minorities, about women, about transgendered individuals, and about the LGBTQ community. I mean, some of this stuff is just ridiculous, but these words came out of his mouth at one time or another. So I'm just going to show you that I will be reading it. I'll be reading it. So there it is. But I'm just going to go back and I'm just going to read it so it's bigger here. Under minorities, denied the existence of systemic racism and called white privilege a racist idea. Meaning that when the left created the idea of white privilege, because that does exist, it does, Charlie Kirk is saying that that is racist. He repeatedly criticized the Civil Rights Act of 1964, calling it, quote, a huge mistake. I'm not going to go into what the whole of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You can Google it yourself. You can AI it yourself. But essentially, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 gives me and other people who look like me, who were disenfranchised, particularly where voting is concerned, and being discriminated against. It included other things, but it essentially, the Civil Rights Act essentially gave strength to amendments in the Constitution that were created to protect black and brown people. Referred to Martin Luther King Jr. as, quote, an awful and not a good person, despite him giving him earlier praise. Charlie Kirk claimed that black Americans were better off under Jim Crow laws due to lower crime rates. I wasn't alive during Jim Crow, but my mother was a teenager and a young adult during Jim Crow, while being raised by my grandparents who lived during Jim Crow. Charlie Kirk said that black people were better off during Jim Crow. I'll give you an example of what happened during Jim Crow. In Oklahoma, I forget the year, but I didn't include this in my written notes here for this video. But you can also Google this and AI this if you don't believe me. Because in fact, I want the same way that I vet all the information out that I put on this videos, vet me out. Because I want you to be informed. I don't want you to be uneducated. I don't want you to be uninformed. If you don't change your mind, that's fine. But at least your opinion is going to be based on facts. Hashtag facts matter. And so there was an area of square mileage, I will say, in Oklahoma called Black Wall Street. It comprised about a 200 square mile radius in Greenwood, Oklahoma. And on that side of Greenwood, when it grew during segregation, since black people were not allowed to deal with white society unless it was in a menial position, black people decided to create their own. They built a city. They had their own banks. They had their own commerce. They had their own barbershops, doctor's offices, law offices. Built some magnificent homes. Took care of their neighborhoods. Did it all. Until somebody decided to incite a riot. And they burned it down. All of it. All 200 square miles of it were burned. And more than 300 people were murdered by a white mob with guns and torches marching through that area screaming about how they would not take their jobs and their livelihoods away from them when they weren't even doing anything. And yet, Charlie Kirk said that black people were better off during Jim Crow. He called George Floyd scumbag and falsely claimed his death was due to an overdose. And he's not the only one who claimed that his death was due to an overdose, even though not just the nation, but the world viewed the police officer's knee on his neck. On his neck, strangling him. He questioned the competence of black professionals, and I actually saw him say this on a video, saying, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified, as though standing a black pilot against a white pilot or a brown pilot or an Asian pilot, the black pilot is going to be less trained than the other pilots. And let's say all their training happened in the United States. That is just a synopsis of what Charlie Kirk has said about African American people. So let's move on to women. And it's no secret, and I'm not shaming or trying to embarrass any woman who follows Old Testament doctrine, meaning that women should be subservient to their husbands. I'm not doing that. Because while I am an ordained minister, the only reason I'm ordained is so that in North Carolina, I am able to perform weddings. I'm not connected to a church. I don't preach every Sunday. I've been accused of preaching, but I don't officially preach in a church on a Sunday. But I'll get into the Old Testament piece in just a minute when we talk about this. So he argued that women should prioritize motherhood over career, saying having children is more important than having a good career. Charlie Kirk is not the only one who said that. Harrison Butker had his social media behind handed to him because he essentially said the same thing to the graduates at a women's college. And he was booed for it. Claimed birth control makes women angry and bitter, and that women over 30 are less attractive in the dating pool. Really? He is an expert on attractiveness. Said Democratic women want to die alone without children. And he's specifically talking about women who choose not to have kids. But there are women who can't have children. So even if they don't, it doesn't matter. If you are a woman who doesn't have children, you are disavowing what you were created for. His words, not mine. While Trump supporting men, again, singling out, Trump supporting men seek family, children, and legacy. Meaning that the only thing that a woman is supposed to do when she is chosen by her man, that she is to give him children so that he can establish his legacy. Does that not sound like the 1950s to anyone? Urged Taylor Swift to submit to her husband and reject feminism after her engagement was announced. I mean, you would have to be in outer space and under a rock to not know that Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged. Wanting Taylor Swift, a billionaire and one of the most popular pop singers on this planet, to submit to Travis Kelce when they get married, which again is Old Testament policy and doctrine, Never mind the fact that, and Charlie himself said that he was a Christian and he reads the Bible. Well, he forgot a little thing called the New Testament when Jesus was preaching and said, "But today I bring you a new covenant to love and honor thy neighbor as you do yourself." So if Charlie Kirk were going to do all that, that's fine. But let's just be real about it. Don't even put the banner of Christian on yourself, because Christians are supposed to follow the teachings of Jesus. That's what Christianity is at its core. But if you are an Orthodox Old Testament follower, then say that. Then say that. And then we can discuss and debate from there. But don't try to get it under the guise of any of that, because we're talking about a man who wasn't married and didn't have children. So how do you and I will ask Erica Kirk now, after her period of mourning, and none of us can put a deadline on a period of mourning. We all mourn in different ways. We do. And some of us, I will say this about deaths that have affected me. Do we ever really get over it? Even if we move on, do we ever really get over it? So I extend Erica Kirk grace in that respect. But if you haven't seen her video when she first spoke after Kirk's murder, and I'm paraphrasing here, her words wanted people to understand. Turning Point USA is not going away. What Charlie Kirk was doing is not going away. And she said that the people who are happy that Charlie Kirk is dead have no idea what they have just unleashed. Now, when I saw that, the first thing that came to my head was not that she was angry. She has every right to be angry that somebody killed her husband. She does. Every emotion that goes with that, she has every right to feel. But to say that Charlie Kirk's death is going to unleash something that's coming to those who disagree with Charlie, I'm asking all the people who are social media content creators, particularly in the political realm, this is where we have been lacking all these years. Because if we had, myself included, because honestly, I didn't even start my own channel until Kamala Harris lost the election last year. That pissed me off enough to where I had to do this to channel my own anger. This is why, and all these people are now Fox News, the MAGA right, Donald Trump himself, Stephen Miller, the imp of a deputy chief of house, angry little man, is now talking about coming after people who are on the left because of Charlie Kirk's murder. Those of us who are the antithesis of that, it is time for us to rise. We have to battle this, because had we done it when MAGA started to rise, I'm just going to go ahead and propose that the Hortmans would not be dead. Shapiro's house would not have been firebombed. And yes, quite possibly, Charlie Kirk would still be alive. And the umpteen school shootings that we have had that have resulted in the deaths of children and adults may not have happened, because there would have been a balance in the debate and the rhetoric. And if we don't do it now, only more of this is going to continue to happen. But let's continue. We're going to move on now to what he has said about transgendered individuals. Equated being transgendered to wearing a woman face, likening it to blackface. If any of you don't know what blackface was, this was something else that was prior to Jim Crow, when Southern society and white society were just blatant about the entertainment industry, and you would have white men and white women painting themselves in blackface, trying to emulate and characterize black people in everyday life. Google it. Look it up on YouTube. There are some people who hold public office now who have been found out to have participated in college parties of doing blackface. I'm not sure, but I believe J.D. Vance was even accused of that. But I'm not sure. Called Gender Affirming Care, a throbbing middle finger to God, and liken doctors who perform gender affirming care to Nazis. Yeah. Advocated for Nuremberg-style trials for gender-affirming clinicians. So he's calling the doctors to Nazis, yet he wants to advocate for Nuremberg-style trials for those same doctors, meaning that the Nuremberg trials put Nazis in the hot seat. So that's what he's trying to do. Meaning that in some states today, if a doctor performs an abortion, that doctor, he or she, will lose their license and they will go to jail, and the woman can also go to jail. There are states that have that type of law on the books. Texas is one of them. Don't believe me? Look it up. Just like that woman who died in Georgia because of Georgia's law. She came to North Carolina to get the abortion pill. And then went back to Georgia and couldn't get the care that she needed when things in her body went wrong, and she died because of the Georgia abortion law. Don't believe me? Look it up. Claimed transgender rights were part of a broader effort to strip humanity and merge people with machines. Really? Really? I believe several movies have been made about this, and that's just exactly what they are, fantasy. The $6 Million Man, The Bionic Woman, The Bionic Dog. Yeah, I'm old enough to have watched those shows back in the 70s and 80s. Jamie and Steve were actually heterosexual, and Max the dog was a male German Shepherd. They were not transgendered. So I don't know how he made this crap up. Referred to transgender individuals as freaks and used slurs in public commentary. Probably the same slurs that Nancy Mace is using now, because she no longer feels safe, and she doesn't call transgendered people or trans men and trans women. She uses a slur and talks to them and calling them trannies. It is a slur to call a transgender person a tranny, even if it's somebody in the LGBT community. Hear me clearly when I say this. It is a slur to call a transgender person, no matter who you are, it is a slur to call a transgender person a tranny. So let's move on finally to the full LGBTQ plus community. He described, and disclaimer, I am a black gay man. Yes, I am one of the people that Charlie Kirk did not like. Described LGBTQ plus advocacy as sexual anarchy, meaning because I'm gay and not running around here screwing women, that I am committing anarchy and a threat to Judeo-Christian values. Well, I don't go to church today, but I do believe, and there are some church services on Sunday that I do watch. But there are plenty of gay people who are married, who have children, who go to church. And the world has not been set on fire. Those churches have not burned to the ground. Oppose same-sex marriage and claimed gay couples want to corrupt your children. I believe that's when he came up with the term groomers. So if I were to get married, my neighbors across the street have kids, and then we are going to influence their children, corrupt their children to become gay. Please. Misquoted biblical passages to suggest gay people should be stoned to death. Again, Old Testament, people quote Leviticus all day long, don't know the history, the authorship of that book, who the audience of those first few books of the Bible were intended for, don't understand. I'm not going to get into a biblical lesson of that. I actually went to a biblically sponsored college and had to take religion classes. So I know a little something about it, but that's not what this video is about. But yes, he misquoted. He, being a Christian and being a biblical scholar, his words, not anybody else's, misquoted Bible passages. Repeatedly used inflammatory language, including calling LGBTQ plus people groomers. And so, having gone through all of that, even if you're not a member of one of the groups that I just went through, just listening to that, you should be appalled just for that already. But the only reason that Charlie Kirk and other people like him even have a platform for this, and again, I can draw a line directly to Donald J. Trump in his first term, who opened the proverbial Pandora's box. This is how we've gotten here. And if we don't stand up to balance this out, we're just going to get more of this. And make no mistake, transgender people have nothing to do with Charlie Kirk's murder, other than the fact that there is potentially a transgendered roommate of Tyler Robinson's who is cooperating with police. Tyler Robinson apparently is not cooperating with police. And then there's a question. They were trying to say that there were transgendered symbols written on the bullets. Well, it turns out Tyler Robinson did not like Charlie Kirk, and there's a reason he didn't like Charlie Kirk. More information is coming out about this, but those symbols have been attributed to a white supremacist group called the Groypers, Groypers, Groypers. And guess who created and leads the Groypers? I'll show you as I end this video. This guy, Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes. And it says right there, Nick Fuentes is an American far-right political commentator, advocate, activist, live streamer, and leader of the Groypers, which promotes white supremacist, misogynistic, homophobic, and anti-Semitic views. So even within the MAGA right, there are opposing factions. And so nobody on the left, no leftist leader, no Democratic leader has said anything about, oh, happy day that Charlie Kirk is dead. No, absolutely not. What happened to Charlie Kirk is heinous. It is. But this is just my personal opinion. Charlie Kirk is not a national hero. He's not. And yet Donald Trump wants him to lie in state. Well, I did a little digging. And according to the rules about someone lying in state, Donald Trump doesn't have that power as president. That is congressional power. The Congress decides who can lie in state and be given that honor, whether it's a lying in state honor or lying in honor for private citizens, which Charlie Kirk was, a private citizen. And so I leave you with this. I don't mourn the death of Charlie Kirk, quite frankly, because I didn't know him personally. But I empathize with his wife for losing her husband and the manner in which she lost her husband. And I empathize with their children, who were very young. I don't even think the oldest is even over 5 years old. I can't imagine how Charlie's family, Erica's family, are going to explain to their kids what happened to their father and how they're going to grow up with that. But what I cannot allow is everything that I just read to you, which can be found online and attributed to Charlie Kirk, is to allow this administration and those on the right to whitewash it. I will not. I will not. And one other little nugget, that if you go to YouTube and search a channel called I've Had It, because this is where this last little bit I got from after watching this video today. I didn't know that this was happening. The NFL is actually asking teams for a moment of silence to honor Charlie Kirk. The majority of the players in the NFL are African Americans. They're asking, yes, and I know there are African American men who are Republicans, and even still, there are some African Americans who support Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk's rhetoric. Yes, there are black people who support Charlie Kirk's rhetoric. And I'm actually going to do a video in the future on that as well, because of a comment that was posted on another video that I had on this very subject. But I will end this video with my usual hashtags, because at the end of the day, how we got here is because of who was elected and who was not elected. Hashtag elections matter. Midterms are happening soon. Municipal elections are happening everywhere. Elections matter. Be involved. Be involved. No matter which party, or if you're unaffiliated, make educated choices. Don't just carry the card and just vote for that, because the Democrats don't have everybody's interest at heart. The Republicans most certainly don't have everybody's interest at heart. There are libertarians and independents who don't have everybody's interest at heart. But you have to vet these people out. You do. To prevent another Donald Trump from being president, to prevent the rise of people like Charlie Kirk and Nick Fuentes, Laura Loomer, Megyn Kelly, Fox News in its entirety. We just can't have this. We can't. And our constitutional republic cannot be changed into a white nationalist country. It cannot. It cannot. So while y'all ponder on that, I got some other stuff I need to do, and I will see you on the next video.